Hello. Next couple of lessons, I'm going to show you two games of slightly different nature. So it will be more about the positions, the situations when your opponent's king, hopefully it's not your king, but your opponent's king, is, kind of unsecure in the long term. So it's not a violent direct attack, mating your king, but mating your opponent's king, but just you play, I would even say a positional game, but there is no way for your opponent to secure the position of his king, and at some point it becomes a major factor, of the position. So first, I would like to show you my game with black against Anish Giri from Stavanger 2014, classical chess. Strangely enough, it was Catalan, so Anish played d4 and went for Catalan. So it's not so easy to create a serious attack against white skin and Catalan, but somehow in this particular game I managed. I don't know how, but rather quickly white king became unsecure and a target for the rest of the game. So very classical variation, d takes c4, queen c2, a6, a4, a very well-known tabia nowadays. Bishop f4, another serious theoretical move is bishop g5 here as well. Bishop f4, I played bishop d6 here, one of the possible theoretical moves. Queen c1. Yeah, at that time it was a almost new move, and now I think it's supposed to be the main idea for white. Well, in general, of course, black is extremely solid in this position, but still, what is important, I guess, for white players nowadays is that there is a game. Yeah, you cannot really force matters and simplify the position with black. So white is still having a certain, well, I would say, if not slight plus, but at least a more comfortable, on the better side of equality, I would say, and it can secure a long game here. So that's why this line against the system bishop e7 in Catalan nowadays is quite popular. But objectively, yeah, I played quite a number of games here, and I was never really worried so much about my position with black. For instance, I've played a game actually a couple of years later against Pavel Ilyanov, and I think he went knight c3 in this game, if I remember correctly. And actually, surprisingly enough, I also managed to win by mating attack here. I don't know. I have a very special talent probably to organize a mating attack from nothing. Yeah, but somehow it also ended in the same fashion, even though I was worse at some point. But anyways, you can have a look at at this game as well. But Anish played queen c1. I went a5. Well, I suppose what black's idea is to get this knight from b8 somewhere to b4. Yeah, it looks like a tasty square since white have played a4 already. For instance, I think the main move is knight c3 here, and then I suppose my plan was to play knight a6 and knight b4. But okay, it's a playable position. White still can have some chance for a small maybe plus due to the due to the more control in the center. But Anish played bishop d2 here. A little bit strange idea. I think it was a novelty at that time. A playable move, but yeah, it looks strange. Yeah, because bishop is very well placed on f4. No, I mean definitely there is a clear idea behind this move is not to allow black knight to get to b4, because after knight a6, obviously a5 pawn is hanging. But still, now I can change my plans. I went knight bd7, and still I believe with this tempi, loss of tempi, I don't think white can really fight for any serious advantage here, or any advantage at all, actually. rook d1 was played, and I played queen a8. It's a very interesting move because it's a multifunctional move. From one point of view, I want to attack potentially the pawn on a4, also preparing e5 under some circumstances, and also preparing a plan which I finally managed to execute in this game as well. So I think it's quite a good move. I think Anish started to think here, and he went bishop c3. Although I'm not big fan of this. I understand that he probably didn't like knight c3 because of probably two reasons. One reason is knight b6, and for instance, queen c2, bishop b4, and when black starts to attack this a4 pawn, and in this position, b3 usually doesn't really give anything. Yeah. I mean, usually white is trying not to commit himself to play b3, but still it's playable, of course. Maybe black would go h6, rook d8, something like this. Probably a more or less equal position. Another idea is to play knight e4, queen c2, f5, something what I've done also in the game. Also very possible, but here definitely white would have a better version. So probably I would try to play knight b6 in this position. So anyways, knight c3 was probably a better option because bishop c3 now, well, the idea, I suppose, that after knight b6, b3, the knight will already go to d2 and maybe c4. That makes a lot of sense, of course. But after bishop c3, I already play in the following fashion: knight e4 and f5. So and you see the queen can also go to h5. So there is some attacking potential black has in this position. Knight fd2, bit artificial move, I would say, to my taste. I think knight bd2 was more logical, but still, I don't know if I would probably just play the 5 anyways, maybe, or some other move. In any case, it's possible that white was afraid of knight takes c3 also. Yeah, in the case of bc3, knight b6 or something, that a4 pawn can be lost. Yeah, and after queen takes c3, bishop gets to b4. So all in all, I think black has a good game here already. But knight fd2. Because of course the idea that if knight takes c3, then white would already probably take with a knight, and the a4 pawn is well protected, and the knight is heading somewhere to c4 or e4. That would maybe give white certain small plus. But I've played f5, of course, f5, and okay, black is ready to start his play on the king side. So knight takes e4, probably played with a heavy heart, I would say, but otherwise, it can become really dangerous soon. So knight takes e4, f takes e4. Of course, now my pawn structure is pretty bad, but the position is dynamic, and there is very, very dangerous potential attack on the king side. So queen h5, knight f6, knight g4, all those ideas. White has to be very, very careful now. To avoid some real troubles soon in this position. And for example, if queen c2, a logical move, then queen h5 comes. Queen h5 works, and white probably has to go bishop e1, which would be, quite similar to the game. Again, black is probably playing knight f6 here, then he wants to go knight g4. Not my cup of tea, this position for white, but of course, if white tries to take this pawn on e4, then rook takes f2. Very typical. I wouldn't even call it a combination, a tactical shot, because it's clear that after takes, black is just winning. Let's say king e3, queen takes g3 check, and bishop f3, check on f4, king d3, bishop takes f3, and it's over simply. Black is mating, so that's why bishop e1 was played. Anyway, has to be played because the pawn on f2 otherwise will be under attack. Queen h5, knight c3, knight f6. Well, knight g4 is potentially a very, very big threat, so white has to play h3. And now, yeah, rook f7, very logical play. I mean, just doubling rooks. White cannot really manage this position without playing e3. Has to play it at some point, because sooner or later there will be a lot of tactical ideas connected with black playing e3. So white cannot really afford to keep his pawn on e2. So e3, rook a f8. And this position, yeah, actually is quite considerably better for black. Because if you take queens off the board, yeah, then it would be a totally different story. But the king, white's king is in a long term. I mean, it's not easy to mate white, of course, but it's a really long term attack. I mean, and whatever white will try to start doing on the king side, he will have probably to get one or two of his pieces there to create some plays, and immediately he can really easily get mated here. So queen c2, queen f5. Well, actually played quickly this move queen f5 just to protect the pawn, because the position is not really forcing. Yeah, I mean, it's more a positional game. But in fact, there was according to engine, much more precise was queen g5, and in case of I mean, maybe somewhere in some lines, black might start be threatening bishop takes g3. And the problem that knight e4 doesn't work, because black takes and bishop takes g3, and black is actually winning here. But yeah, anyway, it's not a major difference, but that would maybe followed by h5, that would give, well, maybe quite an important tempi for black. In order to get well, quite significant advantage. But still, queen f5 is also good enough, actually. Yeah, in fact, white's position is again, in a practical sense, it's extremely difficult, because black's play is simple, is very clear. h5, maybe h4, g4, knight takes g4. One of the ideas. Another, sometimes knight h7, knight g5, depending on the situation. And for white, it's very difficult to organize any counterplay, actually, any play. That's why knight b5 is a logical try, just to exchange some pieces and to maybe to attack the pawn on a5. And here, of course, black is having a good game for sure. But yeah, bishop b4, if you're becoming too materialistic, I think that then white has good chances to slowly to equalize. Let's say takes, rook c1. And for instance, after h5, then white has d5 because of the d4 square for the knight. And it seems that, for instance, after bishop d5, knight c7, there is quite a forced line. Rook c8, knight takes d5. Okay, winning, black wins queen, but takes whatever, takes on f6, rook takes c2, but I mean, there is no realistic chance for black to win the game. Yeah, it seems to be very drawish, this position. So that's why, and I believe actually bishop on e1 is, of course, it's protecting the pawn on f2, but actually it's not such a great piece. Yeah, because a lot of pawns are on the black squares, white pawns, and it can become this famous, well-known bad bishop. Yeah, which in some endgame, which can decide the game in black's favor. So yeah, I played h5. It's a very good move. It's a pawn sacrifice. But yeah, I mean, actually totally justified. Bishop takes a5. Well, white has to try at least to suffer for a pawn. Yeah, not that this pawn is extremely important, but still it's a pawn, and if you are just suffering with equal material, that is probably the prospects are pretty dark for white. So at least there is a pawn, and here try to think. I would like to give you the task here. So how would you proceed after bishop takes a5? What are the possible ideas? And well, if you decide for some idea, try to calculate a bit variations if it's needed. Yeah. Well, you can see the difference of me if you've seen the previous lessons in the 90s when I was young, and 2014, getting older, more solid. Trying not to go into unnecessary risky complications, especially in a good position. So of course I played knight h7. It's of course very important maneuver. Again, yeah. If you remember my advice that when you are attacking, when you have play against the king, so you just improve the position of your piece. You get pieces closer and closer to the attack, and of course, knight is heading to f3, a very tasty square. It's all very logical, and it's a good move. It would have been the best move, if not something which probably I would have played some, 20 years earlier. Actually, the computer shows that here black could crash with a very direct attack. It's not easy at all to understand that this is so strong, but the best move was h4. h4, and actually now g4 is obviously pretty bad, because I guess knight takes g4, and then I'm going to mate in this position. h3 is threatening, and so on. So, a computer saying that rook f1 maybe is the best move. Also, not assessing white chances very highly, but I'm sure that bishop e1 would have been played, and that was something I couldn't really find a way how to proceed after bishop e1. But because h4 might be a bit, committing to h4 might be a bit too early, yeah? Here, white can get some g4 and if I don't have knight take g4 sacrifice, in general, I would like to leave h4 for later. But actually here, computer finds, very powerful engines nowadays. They you probably notice that they're sacrificing material much more lightheartedly, and it finds g5 here. Well, that I'm not sure it really crossed my mind. I just didn't believe. It looks pretty slow, yeah, and it's very, very committing move, but it seems to work. Actually, now black wants to play g4. Of course, g4 was my concern. Knight takes g4, knight d6, c d6, hg, queen takes g4, king h2, and it's not quite clear how to proceed with the attack, because white seems to protect everything, and here I guess every human chess player would stop and think, okay, probably it doesn't work really. But computer continues, queen h5. That is really, you can believe that it can work, but it's I wouldn't be sure, and I wasn't sure, but actually it seems that white is in big trouble here. Bishop takes e4, g4, just going all in. King g1, sooner or later, g3, f4, rook g7, very quiet move, just followed by h3. And not that it's not really winning by force, actually, not winning, but I think engine is giving here like +1.5 or +2. So I guess there is some long line where white is not getting mated immediately. For black, +1.5 or +2. So, but it actually was very, very strong. Well, yeah, I'm not computer yet, so I played knight h7. It's actually would have been very strong, because knight takes d6 should be played, cd6, and now white has a very important resource, bishop b4, very, very important, because I think in case if he tries to play bishop e1, knight g5, then probably mate will come. Rather soon. It's very likely black is going to mate white, but bishop b4 creates a kind of disorder in black's ranks, because the d6 pawn is hanging, and queen takes f2 doesn't really work. Takes because bishop takes d6, rook f7. Still, black has some attack, but before the position is, I'm not sure if black is really worse, but not better. Yeah, there is not enough force, not enough pieces in the attack. So I had to retreat, queen d5. Anyways, of course, black has a very long term, as I mentioned, long term, very dangerous play on the king side. But white is seemingly in time now to to protect his king, and then in fact, even with best play, actually hold the draw here. After queen d5, Anish played rook f1, probably the best move, I think, because another option is to play rook d2. Now I just wanted to show you again for pleasure, but also I think it's pretty important to see how engines are attacking. Yeah, they do it better than us humans, and here actually quite beautiful variations after rook d2. But anyways, rook f1 is definitely much safer and better, and engine prefer rook f1. So after rook d2, knight g5, probably I would play a5. So white tries to create some play with a6, h4. g4 is the only way to stop mate in attack here. And now rook f3. Well, of course, bishop b5, I would, frankly, even if computer assessment is here is close to equal, but I wouldn't bet too much money on the positive outcome for white of a practical game between two human chess players, because there are all sorts of ideas. Rook f3, knight f3, maybe sometimes knight h3. The bishop on b5 is strong. I mean, to me, if I just look at this position from with a human eye, yeah, I would definitely think that black is whether objectively much better, whether practically much better. But in fact, maybe not. Maybe it's quite difficult also for black to improve his position. I mean, to deliver final blow. Yeah, it's not so easy, it seems. But the very nice variation. I really enjoyed it. As many actually other lines also when I was preparing this course, rechecked my games with already very powerful nowadays engines. So many amazing variations that I just want also to share it with you. This one, which I found great, rook f3. This is the best way of playing for black. And now white has like, I don't know, 10, 15 only moves to save the game. And I show you a6 only move. For some reason, king h2, all this is just doesn't work. Black is mating white. So a6, knight takes h3 check, king h2. Not easy, yeah, to play like this, but it seems that taking on f2, I guess, doesn't work really, because bishop f3 and rook f2. But now black has amazing resource, queen g5 here. What a move, queen g5. And the idea is white's only move is a7 here. But I couldn't really understand. I tried also myself to understand, and sometimes I would switch off engine and try to understand what is the idea of the move. So what's going on after takes rook f3, a7? How to mate here? Knight f4 is the answer. a8 queen, king h7, and white is lost. This is just mate. With actually a queen and exchange up, yeah, as I understand, in this position. So ef4. Now queen takes g4 looks like mate, but actually there is a way for white to escape here with a queen a3 move. And after queen a3, it's a draw. So what is winning is queen takes f4 check, king g1, queen takes g4 check, king f1. And now, well, there is more than one way to win, but the simplest is rook h3. Very quiet move, just threatening rook h1 mate, and computer starts to play moves like queen h8 check, rook a8 check, rook h8 check, queen takes e4 check, just to gain moves before getting mated. So actually here black just mates white. So that's why a7 is the best move, but a7 holds here because I guess it's very important to keep the bishop on g2, so knight f4 is already not working. But queen takes g4. Black still keeps on his attack. a8 queen, knight g5. Yes, I guess threatening rook h3 check, I suppose. So white is saved by queen takes f8 check, king takes f8, bishop takes d6 check. Very important to get this bishop into the defense. King f7, and now king h1, again only move. and rook h3 check, bishop h2 finally. Knight f3, bishop takes f3, and after queen f3, king g1, there is nothing better for black than to give perpetual. Queen g4 check, king h1. And it's a perpetual check. So a beautiful variation, just showing an example of resourcefulness and in attack. Yeah, so how many resources are there and how amazing, how many amazing variations can occur on the board. So you can continue your attack being queen down and win the game still. So, anyways, rook f1 was played. The game was much much calmer. Rook f1, knight g5. Yeah, here, the same idea playing h4 is already not that powerful, because I guess I'm not even so much threatening hg, because white will start exchanging the rooks. So h4 is a possible move, but it seems that white is doing okay after h4. So knight g5, b3. Well, now it gets actually positional. The game, it's very difficult to find anything really decisive for black, but also white doesn't have that many ideas. Well, for now, he wants to play queen c4. So b3 is the idea, to play queen c4 and to attack the d6 pawn. So rook d8. I'm just protecting it. Yeah, now that is a quite important point. It was hard to understand over the board what about this position, h4. I thought it looks very, very dubious. Also my opponent, since he didn't play this, but actually computer says that it's holding. h4 and knight f3 check. Now white has to get rid of this very important bishop. Weakening all those squares, all those white squares. And this position, well, over the board, I thought, well, sooner or later, black will manage to get g5, h4, and probably will mate. Because white cannot really do anything, cannot even play a5 because of bishop b5, quite often. And then f2 pawn will be weak. But engines just playing rook d1 and simply stand, do nothing, and pretend that black cannot find a way how to improve his position, how to mate. Maybe who am I to argue, with them? But it humanly looks like sooner or later black will manage to get his g5 and break through, I don't know, bishop somewhere to the diagonal, e5, queen to h3. It seems that there are so many potential tactical possibilities, but not so easy, because the d6 pawn is hanging. That's a problem. I'm stuck protecting this d6 pawn. Even engine is showing some kind of idea, moving king to e7 just to protect the pawn, and then to free the rook somewhere to g8 to start an attack. But somehow always finding the way for white to manage a draw. But again, this is difficult to understand during the game. And of course, humanly, you want to keep your bishop on g2, because it's very, it's the only piece practically which is defending the poor king. So it's more. I also was sure that white is not going to give up this bishop on g2. So that's why rook c1 was played, but objectively it was a better choice. Knight f3 check. Again, bishop takes f3, probably an h4 is the right way of playing, I suppose. But king h1, queen f5. So now bishop takes f3 is not possible, because queen takes h3 check, and this position, white starts to make moves, to stay queen e2, maybe trying to do something on the c line to double. But so the question now, what kind of plan black should try to realize in order to break through, because basically black can just stay and white is not going to do anything, because he cannot. He cannot even push the pawn a5, as I mentioned already. Bishop b5 comes. So try to think now. It's very strategical. position. I mean, there are not many lines. Just trying to find the plan, a certain idea for black, how to try at least to break through in this position. So try to think, and because that is important. Yeah, that's important. That maybe you will not realize it immediately, but you maybe prepare a bit, but finally to understand what is your main idea in the position. How, I mean, so you are then when once you know it, then you are searching for the best circumstances, for the best moment to realize it. Yeah, so that is how usually you should play such positions. So think and come up with your idea. I will tell you now what was my general plan here. Yes, so I couldn't really find a way, because if knight g5, I mean here first of all the pawn on h5 is hanging, but also white can maybe play king h2 at any moment. Well, at the moment h5 is hanging. So how to g5? I don't see where it's leading. Yeah, it's leading nowhere, just weakening the king. So finally, I understood that there is only one way to try to win this game is to push e5 at some point. I mean, and to actually to try to enter on the d line. Strangely enough, so that is finally, but it's move 30, so I guess not so much time now. So I started to search for a good moment to put the pieces in the best squares. So one day finally to push e5 at some point, because now it's a bit early. So that's why king h7 first, improving position of the king, rook c2. Actually, here was already a very interesting moment to play e5 already here, but okay, I wanted to wait a little bit more. First of all, to get closer to the time control, that I can be sure that in case if some tactic starts, that I at least I will manage to get to the time control. Yeah, because I think it's actually a logical way of playing in a practical sense, that you if you can play few moves doing nothing and your opponent is stuck also without a plan, then at least you make you make some very important decision closer to the time control or immediately after the time control, that you have time to think. So bishop d5, rook c3, king g6. I don't know even why king g6. Maybe I just wanted to. Yeah, actually, now I understand. Yeah, because it was difficult to understand. I think my idea is that in case of, let's say, rook fc1, so I want to keep the rook on f1. In case of rook fc1, there is kind of double attack, knight g5, attacking the pawn on f2 and on h3. So I protected h5 pawn. But okay, and after h4, I suppose I might have knight h3 move. This, by the way, not so clear, but in the worst case, knight f3. So at least I managed some weakness. But in any case, it doesn't change that much, because queen c2 was played, and well, I decided I play back king h7. This is, by the way, it's actually a very interesting strategy in such positions, is to move around a little. Yeah, to move around, because your opponent sometimes loses a bit of kind of concentration, if you want, or losing a bit of control of what do you want. Yeah, so I notice it in the Karpov games actually pretty often, that he would, in such situation when basically his opponent is quite passive and just stays doing nothing, so he would do some, even sometimes strange things, just to try to it's totally practical, I would say, advice. I mean, just then to try to make the opponent confused what does he really want. I think in g6 had the same idea. So I mean, maybe I want some knight g5. I mean, just a strange move. I know that I can always come back, but maybe some threat. Maybe I have a certain idea, clear idea, yeah, in my mind. So let the opponent think. Queen c2. No, actually, I didn't have any idea. King h7 back. Yes, but now maybe it was a little inaccurate because now black could have played rook c7 actually, and white could have played rook c7. Still, first of all, I can play e5 here, and still things are not easy for white. But I can get back the pawn. Yeah, bishop takes b3 tactically because the rook is hanging after queen b3, and after rook f7, bishop c2 takes on f5 and a5. And honestly, again, because white's king is forever weak. Yeah, whatever you do, it's a weak king. So I thought that it should be better for black. So somehow slowly this endgame, because well, okay, I will organize my play, put I don't know bishop on c4, pawn on d5, g5, h4. That white is suffering, but engines pretend that it's it's not too difficult for white to make a draw here. Maybe I would have played d5. In any case, yeah, it's a difficult dilemma sometimes. Yeah, in that you have your plan, but you always hesitate when exactly to play the c5. So maybe the best moment was here, but finally how it happened, because I guess we were a little short of time here. So bishop a3 was played, and here for sure it's the best possible moment already now to play e5, because bishop. Okay, I understand white wants to push before b5 to create at least some counterplay, but bishop was much better on b4 because d2 square. Yeah, protecting the d2 square, because rook, once the line d line will be open, then the rook can enter easily on d2. So now it seems like there will be not no better moment than to push e5. So that's what I did. D5, D5, and Anish just continued with his plan before. Actually, white had a way to save the position, but again, very, very difficult. Very, very difficult, because the only way was to play rook d1 here. Of course, it's a logical move, but first of all, there is always some move like b6 possible. Actually, also not easy to understand what is white's next. But rook dd7, well, the idea of black is to try to enter on the d line. Actually, not so easy to stop it. But it's not about stopping it. It's about organizing a quick counterplay for white. It's a5, because what black wants is to play bishop c6, exchange, rook d7, probably rook to d2, and then the rook enters into attack, and that will be decisive probably. But it seems that after rook d7, a5, bishop c6, a6, white is just in time, miraculously just in time to save it. Rook d1, queen d1, rook d7, bishop d6. Again, it's really not human, especially in time trouble. How can you play bishop d6? Pinning your pieces, and but it seems to save. Queen f6. Now the white has only moves as usual. A7, rook takes d6, and the point is that yes, now white is actually getting mated if he's trying to queen. And for instance, in case of queen a1, the most logical move, then black just wins with queen f8. This is also quite beautiful, because after bishop takes f3, queen takes f3 comes with check. And in case of a8, queen takes check, well, the typical mate, rook g1 mate. But after a7, rook takes d6, queen b1, saving white. Because of the pin, because of this pin, just tactically, it seems that black has nothing better than to repeat moves and to make a draw here. Because if rook d8, white is saved by rook takes c6. Just purely tactical idea, because here taking on e4 with check, or if queen takes c6, bishop takes f3. Yeah. Therefore, it seems that knight d2 is the best move. Now only move again queen d1, because h5 pawn now somewhere is hanging, and according to engines, yeah, it's nothing better for both sides than to repeat moves and make a draw. So yeah, but of course, again, black can always play something like b6 and continue. Every move in such a position, every white's move is actually very difficult because at any moment there is some tactics coming. And so all in all, I would say, again, in a practical sense, extremely difficult to play with white, but objectively, maybe it was enough to save the game, rook d1. But Anish played before, he started his counterplay, but that's a bit slow because bishop e6, and now the d line. Yeah, the d line is a big problem for white. Bishop c1, and actually here black is already winning. Black is just winning, but it's move 37. I suppose I had just a couple of minutes maybe on the clock, so yeah, my main priority was here to get to the time control. Yeah, because I understood I'm very close to winning, and maybe I was not really searching for ways to to complicate matters. To do something direct. I just wanted to keep the position, and then when I have my next 1 hour for 20 moves, then I will find slowly way how to make it very accurate. My final attack. But actually, I almost managed to miss win with this strategy, because actually there was a simple way: rook fd7, a5. I just was not totally sure if I am in time. Rook d3, now b5. And well, when you have 2-3 minutes on the clock, you're not sure, because white starts already to get his a pawn close to queening. Yeah, but in fact, takes rook c8. Yeah, actually it's winning by force according to engine, because queen b2. White needs to also to keep the c2 square under control, because the rook will enter otherwise, and f2 will fall probably. So queen b2, and even though it still looks like black totally spoiled his position humanly, but bishop c4 is very strong here. Rook d1, bishop d3, and then rook c2 comes, and well, it's winning according to engines. Queen g6 was also not a bad move, actually, because I'm threatening h4. So my plan is to play h4, g4, bishop takes g4. Also makes a lot of sense. For example, in case of a5, if white just continues, then black wins in quite a beautiful way. h4. Well, g4, gh4. If gh, then rook f6. Rook f6, and yeah, amazing. It's quite beautiful. Not necessary, of course, because after b5, for example, queen f5 followed by rook g6 also wins, of course, but queen takes g2. This is a threat, actually. King takes g2, rook g6 check, king h1, bishop takes h3, and no defense against bishop g2 mate. This is quite beautiful. So gh is losing. Therefore, g4, only move, bishop takes g4, h takes g4, queen takes g4, and now, here white is getting mated after, let's say, if queen e2, because I suppose I'm setting simply h3 in this position. So queen, rook c4, queen e2, 2 moves. If queen e2, well, more than one way to win, but rook d6 is the simplest. And well, simply rook g6 comes. For example, rook g1, rook g6, and well, everything is threatening. And for example, after b5, queen h3 is the most elegant way to mate. Bishop h3, rook g1 mate. But rook c4 seems to be a very serious resource, because e4 pawn is hanging. But rook d4, you already know, once you are in attack, once you're very close to mate, already rooks do not matter much. Rook d4 is a beautiful way to win the game. Ed h3, and the game is over. White is just getting mated. So yeah, that was more or less what I wanted to do. And after rook d1, I saw, okay, I can play rook d7, must be bad for white, which is probably the correct assessment, but that was played. Queen f1. Now it looks like black just needs to get his queen, or on d8 somewhere, and just enter rook d1. This really looks pretty bad for white already, but it's unfortunately it's a move 40. I was a bit unlucky. that it was this decision had to be made on move 40 and not move 41, because if it was move 41, I'm sure I would find it not too difficult, because again, when you're so much concentrated on the king side, of course, how to create a mating net, h4, g4, bishop takes g4, all sorts of ideas like that. You sometimes miss, forget that there is other side of the board. And actually, I think I just missed that queen f7 was very strong, because now bishop b3 is threat. I totally forgot about this flank, that the bishop can enter there, and it's just a decisive threat. There is nothing practically white can do about bishop d3. And after bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, it's also losing, because after king h2, rook d1, queen g2, and now bishop takes h3. Very, very important resource, because white is getting mated. If he takes on h3, so he has to take. Now, if he's trying, bishop g2 is threatening. If he's trying to escape this mating net, there is no way. h4 comes. Again, king h3, rook h1 mate. Otherwise, bishop g2. So white probably will play bishop a3, bishop g2, rook c1, rook d2, and king g1. And in any case, this position is very, very difficult with such a king, and a rook stuck on the first rank. But there is, on top of everything, rook a2, and also check takes the pawn, and this position e4. I mean, white is totally stalemated here, because g5, g4, h4, that nobody moves here. And then I will manage to get my king to the center. Bishop can always retreat, I guess, via f1. The rook will start to enter on the first rank. I think it's pretty trivial technical task here to win. But I just missed this idea, bishop b3. Otherwise, queen f7, why to play queen f7? So that's why move 40, I played bishop f5. Very logical move, and in fact would have been very strong. So my idea also to put queen on e6, and then maybe slowly something like rook d6, queen d7, and just enter rook d1. Looks good, but white had here a way to at least to keep the game going, and actually, strangely enough, maybe even to make a draw. So now, okay, try to imagine you're on the white side. I understand it doesn't look very promising white position, but sometimes we don't play well some games, and we have to defend. And what would you do? How would you try to save the game? Here it was move 41, and surprisingly, Anish had quite a lot of time to think. I guess he was not believing much in his chances in this position, and he made played the move, which is a decisive mistake. He played rook c2, probably somewhere trying to protect the second rank. But white actually has no time here anymore to play slow moves. So another, for instance, idea, if white just tries to stay like queen e2, then black has various ways to proceed, but the most accurate, the most precise is rook d6. Actually, very useful move in many senses. I will show you why now. B5, logical to try to create the pass pawn at least. And now h4 with a rook on d6 is already winning. g4, bishop takes g4. hg, queen takes g4. First of all, the rook is already heading to g6 somewhere, delivering mate. And also why rook on d6 is important, because after rook c4 move, now queen d7 suddenly. Quite beautiful, because rook starts to, rook d1 check is a big threat, and then queen h3, and of course, in case of bishop takes f3, queen h3 is mating also. So then queen f1 seems to be the only move, and now black wins by force after h3. In case of bishop takes h3, I guess rook h6 should be good enough. And in case of bishop takes f3, ef3, rook d1 is a threat. King h2, at least to have queen takes h3 after rook d1, but queen g2 check now. Queen takes g2, hg, and rook d1. There is no way to stop, to defend against rook d1. Well, also rook h6 check is threatening. So that is winning. But white should have, anyway, good or bad, but there was no other way than instead of rook c2 or queen e2, just to take on f3 and play e4. Frankly, it doesn't, still looks like it must be, quite bad, the position, but in fact takes bishop e3. Of course, the king is weak, equal pawns already, even actually black can take another pawn, being a pawn up, but strangely enough, it seems that white has very good chances to save the game here. So bishop c2, king h2, bishop rook d1, and bishop takes a4. I understand it looks bad because also queen b1 is a threat very often, in some position. But queen h4, somehow tactically, white is in time to create his play. At least he's more active now. His king is still weak, but bishop e8 and rook c1. Just in time by tempi, rook d3, rook e1. And this position is not as bad as it looks. I would say that, it still looks like it should be slowly but surely lost, but in fact not. In fact, it just white is in time in every line to hold, and with very, very considerable chances to make a draw. So bishop f5, move 40 was a serious mistake because of this bishop takes f3. But Anish played rook c2, which was quite surprising for me because queen e6 now comes. Maybe what he missed, that queen e6 comes with actually a very powerful threat. For example, after bishop b2, bishop takes h3. Maybe this is what was missed by Anish, because bishop h3, queen h3, quite beautiful combination, takes rook d1 check, and black is winning. Simply, mating after king g2, rook g1, obviously. So queen e6, queen e2. Therefore, but here already it's pretty obvious that situation is bad. Now the simplest was bishop takes h3. Actually, I don't even know why I didn't play it, but I was not totally sure about this variation. No, actually, I understand. Maybe you need to calculate quite a long line, but not too difficult. Takes. I guess this 4 hours of complicated struggle before, it made us exhausted, because that's probably normally you should see it. At least a top player should see this rather. It's a very direct line. Take, bishop g4, queen e4 check, bishop f5, queen c4. And I guess, I was not sure how to win this position, but in fact, I have a direct win. Check, king h2, queen c4, rook c4, and now bishop d3. I guess somewhere here I probably stopped, and I thought that this is, it's not 100% guaranteed victory, but bishop d3, because now rook has to retreat somewhere on the c line, otherwise you lose bishop on c1 and bishop e4, and actually white is getting mated. For example, if g4, again, mate like this, already with limited amount of pieces, but still mate, and f3, bishop f3, g4, now simply h4, and rook h1 mate comes. So bishop h3 was winning, but what I played g6, a bit strange move, but I suppose the idea is that now if white is doing something, I don't know, some moves, then I like a5 or whatever, then I take, and I guess the same variation, then queen e4 doesn't come with check. I guess that was the point. After taking on f3 twice, bishop g4 or something, there is no check on e4. But white could prolong a little bit the fight with bishop takes f3 here, ef and queen c4, but that is quite a trivial loss. Losing position, takes, bishop takes h3, king h2, bishop f1, rook c2, because again, black is threatening this mating net, to create a mating net with rook d1, bishop g2. So for instance, here rook d1, and white has nothing better than, let's say he checks, king g8, he can give many checks, king will come close. So finally bishop b2 is only way to to defend against mate idea, rook to c1, but after rook d2, okay, bishop e5, rook f2, and again, whenever white plays g4, black goes h4, and yeah, the position is lost. Anyways, yeah, but rook c4 was played. I guess it was a blunder, but anyway, yeah, the position is already lost by force. So rook c4, and now, well, not too difficult tactics, not even tactics really. Bishop takes h3 was played, and here Anish resigned because, okay, if taken on f3, here queen takes c4 is just a rook up. By the way, I think why rook c4, because I think also queen b3 maybe is a threat. So maybe it was an idea also, another attempt to try to stop queen b3. But bishop h3, the main point is that in case of rook takes c4, now black just takes and plays knight g5. And in case of rook c4, then check on e4, knight comes to f3. And after rook h4, simply here losing the bishop because of check on c1. So finally, after long, 20 moves fight, finally white actually got mated, I would say. Yeah, finally got under the mating attack. Not a perfect game, for sure, but I think a lot of interesting variations, and still, the position was quite difficult to play. Yeah, it was not easy to understand. There were a lot of strange, difficult choices to take on f3. Earlier on, to give up this bishop or to try to keep it on g2 for black. When to play e5, then to play knight h7, knight g5. If you remember earlier in the game, or to try to go to the direct attack. So complicated games, maybe a little bit more mistakes than it should be normally, but again, yeah, it was quite original, not a trivial position, and we tried our best. It was maybe not that much, but I think that the game itself was actually a very interesting and educational.